What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. As somebody who's enjoyed playing on the PlayStation, ecosystem, somebody who one of my main and most played games is Tom Clancy's The Division, where I'm a member of a clan that is actually PlayStation centric, and most of my people that I run the game with and people that I've played the game with for years are PlayStation players. It's interesting for me to see another side of the PlayStation community, and it's not one that I was actually ready for. Just a few years ago, I started talking a little bit about the gaming industry. I started talking a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing and the movement and the change within Xbox. All the while, I was talking about how PlayStation needed to also go ahead and buckle down and make sure that Xbox does not take any lead that will put them in a much more powerful position. Now, one thing I realize is, people will probably disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. And so disagree we did. However, lately, in the last few months, I've decided that, hey, if you look at the data, though, it appears that PlayStation is saying that Xbox has basically leapfrogged them and dominated them in this competitive market. When Insomniac basically got hacked and, we got this huge leak that went out, that everybody got to see some really crazy stuff out there. It was unveiled to us that inside of PlayStation, while they were doing their analysis, that they, felt threatened by Xbox's position in the market. They were threatened by Xbox's position in subscription, in console, and on PC. They write it here in this slide that was published by Jez Corden. And what was really interesting is a lot of people first came out and said that these slides are fake. That was the very first thing. I just sat there and waited. I wanted to ensure that things were, confirmed properly. And in my mind, I was looking around and saying, okay, what is the truth? What is a lie? What is accurate and what isn't? That's the way you do things. You don't want to go ahead and start spreading falsehoods, because you do that, then you shoot yourself in the foot. What made things even more complicated was the fact that we saw that builds of video games that were still in the works got leaked. One of them was Marvel Spider-Man 2. This one really did shock me, guys. I could not believe my eyes. People were talking about it on the news articles. They were talking about, the possibility that this thing was going to get completed. Apparently, there were groups of pirates across the world that had access to this stuff. This is a report from DSO Gaming that talked about it. If you go on YouTube, you'll be able to see that there not only was a Spider-Man PC build that leaked, there was also a Wolverine build that leaked. So when all this got put together, I started asking myself, well, these documents, there's, very little likelihood that they're going to be fake. And so as the journalists were, basically dealing with this and digging, they were able to go ahead and, like Jez Corden said, it has been confirmed that the slides below are indeed genuine, taken from a PowerPoint presentation outlining Sony's strategic pillars. Now, these strategic pillars were actually represented in different PowerPoint slides. There were actually dozens of them, but this one was the one that was the heavy hitting one in the, conversation. And so I took this and I started looking at other data sets, started paying attention even much more, and realized that the entire conversation had shifted a long time ago. We, the gamers, were just being led to believe that things were the same and PlayStation was sitting in this position that everybody conceived as being the top in the game, not knowing that their position had been eroded. And even they looked and said, and this conclusion really shook me, it said Sony's pillars are already dated and behind the competition. They also said that based on the Activision acquisition, that Xbox was going to leapfrog them in the competition. So I came out, I said, wait. Which Xbox is going to leapfrog who? And to me, I thought, then we got to figure out how they're concluding this. Well, apparently, a lot of PlayStation's pillars rest on eroding structures right now. One of them was third-party exclusivity, which we've seen a lot of game developers start shifting away from. Another one was Call of Duty and being able to farm a huge percentage of Call of Duty funds. Well, Xbox is now sitting at 80%, according to reports, of Call of Duty's revenue. I still think it's 70%. Some people have told me that it's 80%. I'm just going to go with the 70%, but whatever, 70, 80, their competition has now taken over the major portion of it. We also saw an article, this was a few months ago, where a developer outrightly renounced an exclusivity deal that Sony offered them to block their game from going to Xbox. Then we got to see Square Enix with 2 games move aside and say, you know what, we're going to take these games multi-platform. The developers of the 2 games were independently talking about how they wanted to see their games arrive on the Xbox platform. This was very interesting. And then we saw Hideo Kojima go ahead and acquire the publishing rights of his game, Death Stranding, and that came on Xbox. And so that started to signal that what PlayStation had been talking about internally seemed to have streaks within the reality that we were seeing. If we never saw this document, we would have thought that these things were all one-offs. We would not have realized that they did have a relationship and they shared a relationship at the end of the day. Here's the problem. Since I started looking at the data even much more in depth these past few months, or I guess in the last year, I've received a lot of attacks from PlayStation fans. Now, this is normal on the internet. You know, when I first started YouTube, people will call me all kinds of names. People will do all kinds of stuff. I'll get, racial slurs, whatever it is, but this is not that kind of stuff. This is the petty stuff. This is the tiny little nonsense, pedantic, petulant trash, right? But what I'm saddened by is, in our society today, we've lost the art of arguing in a very, solid way. I'm not even talking about being nice. Like, you can be rough when you make an argument. Like, you can hold somebody accountable, nothing personal against them. And you can take their argument to the cleaners. And if the argument does not withstand the pressure, then the person has to basically drop their position or change it or go find ways to back up their position with data or evidence. But today, people just come out on the internet and just gaslight you. They literally will say things like, oh, you're spouting lies. And so when I ask them, what have I lied about? Because if you say I'm lying, I want to know so that I don't go be the YouTuber that's telling you lies, right? They won't give you any response. They will literally run around and dance around the situation. And so it's put me in a position where I've started blocking people and I've started deleting comments. I will give the opportunity, I'll give the floor and say, you need to answer and tell me what lie I've said. And if you're not telling me anything, I will delete and I will block you from commenting on the channel. In fact, it's become so obsessive with some of them, they're starting to use alternate accounts to come back. In fact, I asked one of them today and he said, you remembered me because you told me to expose you. So basically, I made a video of this person. I farmed them for content. Then I blocked them. Then they made a hidey and came back again. And I said, okay, you get a second chance. Are you going to now expose the lies that I'm telling, that you claim I'm telling? And still nothing. They're literally sitting there. And some of you've already told me, you said, hey, watch out for some of these hyper fans. They'll try to gaslight you because they really don't have any way to argue against the reality that's in front of them. I guess the problem is I kicked the hive and I basically showed what the truth and the reality is right now. For the most part, a lot of folk had run with Xbox console sales are dead. Well, yes, Xbox console sales are 50% of PlayStation's. And so that to them seemed like, oh, there's the way PlayStation was dominating. However, when we look at different metrics and different points, and we even look at and examine what PlayStation thinks, that narrative evaporates. Because again, the pillars that PlayStation have pretty much been subverted, and Xbox has built bigger and stronger pillars. One of those pillars is in content delivery. Xbox is going to dump so many games very soon on Game Pass that PlayStation's fear here about Activision games, look at this. It says this in this document that leaked alongside the Spider-Man build and the Wolverine build, right? All these things that we saw together that people want to go ahead and downplay and ignore, even though we're seeing other surrounding, things that were basic. In fact, this document to me is not as fantastical as an entire build of a game leaking. I'm a gamer, so I'm just shocked that that's a reality. They said this. They said day one, if you think about it, Xbox was going to put Activision games on Game Pass. They knew this was coming. They write it right here. Day and date threat. Post-acquisition, Microsoft will put Activision games on Game Pass day and date. That fear is only a small piece of everything going on right now. Or I guess I'll say that worry, that threat, that concern, however you want to put it, is a small piece because the Activision games, they're not even really that many compared to the other titles that are coming. Those are just going to pretty much be the padding on everything else as the game changed right in front of everybody, because you don't need the console to execute on this and get these games to people out there. So not only is the data abrasive to a lot of these my fellow PlayStation fanboys, but the fact that Xbox would dare to subvert the console is abrasive to them. They're upset that Xbox did not sit there and try to push hardware, inferior, outdated, lockdown hardware. No offense to console players, that's what it is. It's designed with a forced obsolescence within it so that it can quickly expire without you being able to do much, so that they kind of roll you into buying the next one. That's what consoles would do. Don't get me wrong, PC components also have that in them, but it is less, much of a burden at the same time, because you can make minimal, improvements or buy used parts or old gear at discounted prices. That's where the advantage could be. Different video. And I think this particular shift in everything that Xbox is doing has become abrasive. I've even seen some Xbox, so-called Xbox fans or Xbox fans who also are in the same position as some of these PlayStation fans, that Xbox would dare take a slightly different approach and not focus all of its energies 100% on its console, but still find a way to dominate in the industry. The word dominance is also used in this. Dominance is used in this document. Subscription, right here. Microsoft's comprehensive ecosystem coupled with exclusivity creates greater dominance. This has been so abrasive, and some people have an Xbox console and they're not satisfied. They want to see Microsoft use these games as exclusives and dangle them in front of PlayStation fans so that they can argue with them and say, we have games. The petulance, as much as I will blame the PlayStation fans, I also see it in the Xbox fandom. And so this has become a big issue where now, instead of us actually engaging in the conversation from what I think is the most, neutral and I would say thought-provoking piece, it's become so weird. This is why whenever I make these videos, I usually cite data sets. I usually bring to the table what is being said, what is available out there. And thankfully, we have enough. This is the age of information. And so that's all we can actually basically bring to make the conversation make sense. People could believe otherwise, but it doesn't change anything. The data is still the data. So to my fellow PlayStation fans, to my Xbox community and fellow Xbox, gamers, I just want to say you'll be better served if you follow the evidence. And you need to detach your emotions from the box. This shouldn't be said. We're grown now, okay? Brand loyalty is for children. I mean, I get it. Sometimes a brand can, be really solid and you can attach to it in many cases. But in this stuff, these companies are here to farm money from us. So throw that stuff away. Allegiances, dead. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching the video. Hope to see you in the comment section. Peace out.